American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, from Circa News, Sarah Carter, and from our sister network, the Fox Business Network, our friend Lou Dobbs. Jay, legal standpoint, let's just examine this from that point of view and that perspective.
Sure. Well, first, what happened here was that James Comey, who's had selective disclosure disease, had caught up with him. And that's because he himself put his job at risk. He's the one that, leading the FBI, failed to move on issues that were so clear. Why was there not an investigation that came to a conclusion other than him acting as the Attorney General, which was not his job, regarding the email servers? We go back to that. I go back even further than that, Sean. What about the fake investigation that the FBI engaged in with those IRS cases? I litigated those cases, and I had some of our clients participating in those, that so-called FBI investigation. It was a put-up. And this is, James Comey, and this is without disrespect to the FBI, because the FBI does do great work. But this director of the FBI should have been fired, has been fired, and asked for it himself. I've been saying it for a year. The problem here is he decided he was going to become the judge and jury in these matters, and that was not the role of the FBI director. I could give you the litany of cases that should have been investigated, everything from the unmasking to the disclosures to the leaks to the media to the Clinton email server issue, which we've talked about at length. But at the end of the day, this director of the FBI was not a leader. And what he did was politicize a branch of government, a portion of government that should not be. And look, he serves at the pleasure of the president. Yeah, he had a 10-year term. Guess what? That term ended today, and it was his own undoing. He had to go back to the Congress today to clarify again testimony he gave.
Oh,
he was
horrible.
an absent director, and that's his problem.
And we're not even talking about very important failures under his time, including the Sarnev brothers. They interviewed him at the FBI. They let him go. Then they were warned again by Russia. They still didn't do anything. We could talk about, in the case of
Orlando,
possession of emails of Nidal Hassan before Fort Hood, saying he wanted to kill his fellow soldiers to protect the Taliban. Let me bring in Lou, and then we'll get Sarah in here. Lou.
Well, the issue here is that Comey had it wrong from the very beginning. It's all based on an investigation that took 11 months to actually just drop everything, as you pointed out. The conclusion was to not prosecute when every charge against Hillary Clinton was staring Americans who are not lawyers in the face. They know that she acted irresponsibly. She acted against the law.
Illegally.
And there were absolutely no consequences. It is disturbing that this recommendation that came out today, that the president fire the FBI director, does not leave clearly the pointer toward restarting the investigation of Hillary Clinton. Yeah. Because I think that is the effect here. This whole judgment today on the part of the president was based on the deputy attorney general, and the attorney general saying, based on his handling of the investigation of Hillary Clinton, he ought to be fired. That being the case, that questions the investigation, the consequences, and that should be reopened, in my opinion.
Sarah Carter, you've been breaking a lot of news about the issue of our Fourth Amendment protections, unreasonable search and seizure. I thought of you today because, remember, shortly after the NSA scandal exploded in 2013, Sarah, the FBI was exposed having conducted its own data mining on innocent Americans. Bloomberg reported retains the materials for decades, even when no wrongdoing was found. Now we know the one crime that was committed was against General Flynn.
Correct.
Surveilled, unmasked, the intelligence leaked. And yesterday, Sally Yates said she never was questioned once by James Comey. The one crime we knew that was committed here?
Yeah, I mean, there's never been an actual investigation into the leak, and this is what's so concerning. And I'm hoping that Attorney General Sessions and the Deputy Attorney General now call on the FBI, whoever this new FBI director will be, and even if the interim FBI director is Andrew McCabe, call on them to open an investigation into the leaks. That's what needs to be done. And you know, Sean, I was thinking about this going back to July. You know, it was like Director Comey wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He kept playing both sides, and it didn't work for him. I remember when he came out and said, you know, there was a lack of intent because they didn't want to prosecute Hillary Clinton because of this lack of intent to prove that she was going to do anything wrong with the classified material. Well, you don't need to prove anything. I mean, the fact that she mishandled classified material through gross negligence is enough to prosecute. And that should have been left up. Even if Loretta Lynch wouldn't have prosecuted her, that should have been left up to her to make that decision and not Director Comey. And I think this is why the Deputy Attorney General right now is making this decision and asked the president to fire Director Comey.